Hi, everybody, and welcome to Frankenstein's podcast, where it is all about the monster, although it may not be all about the monster this week. Khalid, want to know why? By the way, I'm Joe, one of your hosts.
Hey, I'm Khalid, your other host. Why, Joe?
Khalid, can you see my hand?
No, I cannot see your hand. That's not how this works.
True. I'm giving you the Vulcan salute again because we're doing some more Star Trek stuff today.
Hey, Vulcan salute right back at you, buddy.
Yeah. This episode, we're breaking format a little bit. We're not talking about a movie or a specific show or a specific monster. We have a very special guest with us today. With us, joining us is Noah Averbach-Katz. Did I say your name right, Noah?
You know what? Close enough. I'll count it.
Ah!
Hello, everybody. Hello, guys. It's my pleasure to be here. How's it going? I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
So great to have you. Thank you.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, Noah is currently starring on Star Trek Discovery in the new season as the Andorian character Rin, the blue guy with the antenna, for those of you less versed in Star Trek. But I believe a lot of our listeners are Trek fans because we've done a few Discovery stuff here before. So most people might know that. But yeah. So before that, though, you were in the theater, right?
Yeah, I've been sort of bouncing around TV, film, theater when I graduated from Juilliard in 2015. So I've done a lot of theater and I've done some film as well. So I've kind of run the gamut of all the different things that you can kind of do in the business.
That's awesome. And now you're doing all sorts of podcasts, I see, right?
Yeah, my new job is doing Star Trek podcasts. Well, you know what? I mean, for those who don't know me, since it's not like a pure Star Trek podcast, I'm just a huge Star Trek fan. So getting to be on the show has been this sort of insane lifelong dream. I think any sort of fandom subset can imagine if they got to put on the Iron Man suit or strap on and put the helmet on to become Godzilla for a weekend, how much fun that would be. So I've just been really soaking it in, and I love to kind of talk to the fans out there and talk to the people who are watching this stuff and get their take on it and what they like and what they don't like and what they'd like to see. It's just very fun for me. So I've been sort of as best as I can, trying to participate and get myself out there as much as I can with this.
That's super cool of you. I'm sure you as a fan must know then like how exciting it is for like us fans to talk to somebody who's actually in the show too. So I really can't express how appreciative we are that you took the time to come to our little podcasting corner over here.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, there's definitely a tradition in Star Trek, but I'm sure in other fandoms as well, which is that in the down times, in the times between the good years, like we're having now in Star Trek, it is the fans who kind of keep the show alive, who keep the things interesting, who kind of create canon in a way that when whatever the property is picks back up, they sort of mine all this content, all these ideas that these fans have been having in the downtime. So it's people like you, with having a little podcast, keeping things alive, appreciating things that are really make, the giant Star Trek Discovery thing possible. So I feel like it's really my pleasure to get to be able to participate with you guys and come on and just, talk about all this stuff and have a good time. So it's my pleasure.
Yeah. Awesome. Before we dig deep into Trek stuff, I think, Khalid, I think you had some acting type questions, right?
Yeah, just a couple little questions. I guess my first question is I did a little like Google on you, and I saw that you were a big Star Trek fan before you got cast as Rin. My question for you is, was it kind of like a full circle moment ending up in Star Trek where you kind of got into acting to eventually end up on a Star Trek series?
That's so funny. People ask me that, and I don't know why, but it never really, especially as I was sort of like coming up, like it never really occurred to me that it could be a real possibility. I think part of it was that when I was sort of coming of age, both as a human and as a like career actor, Star Trek was into real down periods. I sort of was in my prime tween TV watching eras right in Enterprise, especially towards the end of Enterprise. When Enterprise ended, it sort of like felt like, and it was kind of the end of the era. And that, there was a real question whether or not this thing would come back, especially considering how the series sort of abruptly ended. And then when I graduated from school, again, it was this thing where the sort of JJ whatever movies were again starting to fizzle out in a way. They came on really, really strong and exciting, but then seemed to sort of fade into the background. And so, I had heard the vaguest rumblings of they're rebooting this show, but this was almost like we're rebooting everything. So, I had mentioned it to a manager and didn't really think that much of it. It just never really dawned on me that this could actually be a thing that somebody would allow me to do. Somebody would have enough insanity to let me onto the set and think that I wouldn't just try to steal everything.
That's awesome. So it's like a happy accident almost that like this is where you wound up.
Exactly. It's exactly that. It really just kind of, I don't want to say it fell in my lap, but it sort of just dropped from heaven. I'll say that.
That's great. I'm happy for you. And I mean, yeah, I just recently caught up with the last batch of episodes for this season, and your character is really great to see. I just wanted to say that real quick. I'm not as devout a fan as you and Joe to the whole Star Trek series, but I have been following Discovery closely, and you're a very welcome addition to that cast.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, like we said, you're a big fan of Star Trek. Are there any other TV or cinematic universes that like you're very taken with that like you would be feeling very blessed to be a part of?
No. That's the wrong answer. But really, this is like the one thing that I feel like in terms of like pure pop culture, really following it, have like stayed up with in a way. I feel like there's all these things that when I was younger, I would get really into this or really into that, but then it would just sort of fall by the wayside. Or I'd, sort of enter myself into this one world, but then I'd sort of just like move on to something else. I mean, this is really the only thing that I have stuck with in terms of like pop culture, in terms of franchising for my whole life. I mean, that said, if anybody wants to hire me for anything, I'll probably do it. So there's that as well.
When you mentioned kind of growing up on Star Trek and being, and I was reading that was kind of a connection you had with your mom, right?
Definitely, yeah. She is absolutely the one who sort of indoctrinated me, I think is the only word that's fit to describe it. And she's the one who sort of just took me to conventions because that's what we were doing that weekend, and took all my friends to conventions because they were like, oh, we'll hang out this weekend. And then suddenly they're in the car going to Sacramento to some Marriott. And they were like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But yeah, it's been really, really special to get to kind of share this entire experience with her. Because it does feel like, on top of sort of closing a circle or completing some amazing thing for myself and this sort of fandom, it feels that way for my family as well.
I can completely understand that. When I was a kid, my dad was the one who kind of got me into Star Trek, and he took me to a convention when I was like, I don't know, probably like 7, maybe. It was because we're in Minneapolis here. They didn't have them as much up here, but I remember like it being such a huge deal that I met Grace Lee Whitney, who played Janice Rand on the original series. I was like, I couldn't talk. Like I was so starstruck and just really excited about it. I had the autograph, and I go and like tell my friends at school. They're like, I met Grace Lee Whitney, and they're like, who is that?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? But I grew up that was me and my dad. Like my mom, even she wasn't a fan, but she was like just aware of Star Trek constantly, and and he passed away a little while ago, but now it's like something I share with my wife, and I'm sure my daughter will get into it. She's 2 right now, but I'm sure she'll get into it. But it's like a family thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. I do feel like there is a real sort of passing of the torch when it comes to families. So many people, before it was fashionable dressing their baby in whatever kind of costume or clothes or, uniform that they have. There is something about it, especially Star Trek, which is a show so much about both, biological family dynamics and also found family dynamics. I think that it just feels like you are sort of having you're having tough conversations about life and death every time you watch an episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's true. It's definitely kind of a thing that if you kind of watch a lot, especially growing up, like when you're younger, it does kind of help shape like ideologies sometimes, doesn't it? Or
Yeah, it definitely does, and it gives families a common language in a way to say like, oh well, this moment is just like this time when Picard did this, and everyone sort of nods knowingly, like it's like a verse from a Bible or something.
yeah, Khalid, I reference Star Trek a lot to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can validate that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So with your theater background, I assume that like you're probably a little bit more taken with practical effects in television and movies when you enter those worlds. Do you have a preference between practical and computer generated effects in these shows?
That's such a good question. You know, it is something about, when you're working in the theater, even on like, the sort of highest budget Broadway stuff or off Broadway stuff, nothing could compare to being on location in Hamilton, Canada at this steel factory that looks like it's from, it looks like it's truly steampunk, like it's both 1887 and also like 3033 or something like that. Um, and you're there, and then somebody's like, okay, there's 30 extras behind you, and it's your job to make sure that they don't get hit by this explosion, which is going to happen here. And then I need you to jump over this fireball so that you don't catch on fire. In the theater, you have to ignore the audience or ignore the whatever stage exit you can see in the wings. But when you're doing that, you're really thinking like, I got to make sure that nobody blows up, So you really can have a different experience of like being in the moment, which is so much fun and so unlike anything I ever thought I would ever get to do in my life. So it was so great. I also, there's a moment every time you get to like work with CGI effects, which you're interacting with, maybe it hasn't worn off on me, but I always found it to be so much fun to like, you just get to imagine it into existence and move your fingers wherever you want. And it's somebody else's problem to figure out how that works. Whereas with a practical, you're really like, okay, I can touch it like this. I can move it like that. I can turn it like this, but if I hold this part to the camera, the shot is ruined because that's where the battery is. And when it's CGI, you can spin your fingers, you can move your hands around, you can really do anything, especially in this future where they have this programmable matter, and you just you can imagine the most complex object, the most complex interface possible and interact with it. And then it's somebody else's job to like make that come to life in a really fun way. So they both sort of present their enjoyable aspects, I think.
The programmable matter is super cool to see too. As someone who's only kind of been like a passing fan of the Star Trek series in a whole, like watching the technology just take this huge leap and like just giving us a new way to look at how you could fly a spaceship has been so fun to see.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to like be inside of Bookship and get to see how beautiful it is and how well constructed it physically is, with all this sort of curving wood and these amazing panels and everything. And then it's great to see the show and watch it sort of transform itself as it sort of dodges and weaves. It's just a really, really fun idea, which I think they've done a great job with.
Speaking of Bookship, I was just telling Joe earlier that I was very entertained by you seeing a cat for the first time.
Yeah, that was really an interesting day. We shot all, everybody else who worked with that cat was like, they're holding it and they're petting it and they're saying, "Oh, what a nice kitty. It's so sweet." And like, "Come over here, please." And then for my stuff, it was like, "Hey, you're trying to blow up this massive battle cruiser and you think you're going to die. And this pilot is maybe losing their mind and you're screaming and you're yelling and you're twisting." So I'm like, holding this cat, screaming in its face, and it's like, I hate this. I don't want to be an actor. You're a literal monster looking down at me. I've never seen a blue creature before, other than a bird, which I might have tried to eat once, and it's yelling in my face. So by the end of that day, I had claw marks all over my kind of leather outer clothes, which thank God it was like this thick leather, or I would have been actually totally torn to shreds. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was fun, but the original scene was supposed to be like, the cat was supposed to comfort me as I was so scared, and by the end it was really the cat that gave me my confidence back. And really early on into the day, I turned to Jonathan Frakes. I was like, "Jonathan, there's no way that this is going to happen. I need to like let go of this cat or it's going to maul me." And he was like, "Get rid of this thing. It's a nightmare." So everyone else seemed to have a really sweet time with this cat, except for me, and I don't know what the deal is.
The things you do for the craft, I guess.
Exactly.
I forgot that was a Frakes episode. What's it like working with Frakes?
Oh, it was awesome. I was very, very glad I was in prosthetics, so he couldn't really get a look at like my goofy, just like googly eyed grin, because I was getting to like look at him and be around him and talk to him, and he was treating me like, not like he wanted to run away from me, which he probably should have. And then on top of that, like, he's a great dude, like totally down to earth and having so much fun and really thoughtful and funny, and also just a really, really good director, somebody who is able to kind of do all the things that a great director does, which is have amazing shots in mind, be really flexible when something's not working, take ideas from other inputs, stand by their guns when they really think something is going to work, be able to kind of rally the whole, at the time, 80, 100-person crew around them when the days are getting long or when there's some downtime and people are starting to lose focus, and also totally knows how to talk to actors and get great performances from actors and marry, the impulses of the actors with the overall kind of arc of the episode. So it was just really amazing on every different level possible.
That's so cool. I'm like grinning so much just hearing about that. So cool. I wanted to ask you about some of like the makeup and the prosthetics. So like you're kind of like the first Andorian character we've seen for a while that's been sticking around, other than like the Shran character in Jeffrey Combs and Enterprise. So there's been some like visual upgrades to the Andorians. I can see like there's some more prosthetics in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different thing than what they were doing with Shran, and basically everything, everything is different because I love those old Andorians. I love Shran. I'm obsessed with, Jeffrey Combs and his performance. I love the moving antennae. They're so cool. And the light blue coloration, I really like. But I think, so much has changed since then. A lot of it has to do with like the actual definition of television and of cameras. So the kind of latex that they were using back then looked fine on your, 780p whatever busted television that you're watching UPN on. But now if you go back and you watch those episodes in high def or watch earlier TNG in high def, the remastered, you can really, really see the seams. You can really see that it just doesn't look. It looks like makeup, which is sort of the prosthetic nightmare. So for this, they have sort of opted to do these full masks instead. So as opposed to just maybe a forehead piece and wig, it's now an entire prosthetics build around your entire head and shoulders, which has its benefits and its downsides. It really makes you look alien in a different way. It really takes something as opposed to like just a small change and can really add levels of detail that just wasn't an option before. But you definitely lose a lot of flexibility of the face because your face is completely covered by this relatively thick layer of kind of rubber coating. It's not hyper responsive to the subtle facial movements of a raise of the eyebrow or a crinkle of the eye that you were able to get with those earlier aliens. So, it's a difficult and different acting challenge trying to make sure that you can still convey a story while you're wearing these things. So, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Interesting. I will say that, like, despite being in all the makeup, I was really impressed with I think your performance in that episode we were just talking about with the cat, where you I felt like the distrust that you had for Starfleet in the beginning, and sort of how that gradually shifted towards like, okay, I'll admit what I know towards the end. Like, it was fascinating. I think it's cool to see that come through with what you're describing, with all the makeup and extra stuff that's on your face.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of my huge concerns, I never done anything like this before. And it's such a different kind of acting challenge that I really felt like nothing I had done had actually prepared me to do something like this. And so, the first thing I did was talk to Doug Jones, talk to Kenneth Mitchell, talk to Mary Chieffo, the people who I knew really well and really respected, and think that they do kind of incredible work in prosthetics, and just sort of get a sense of like what they're doing, what they're thinking about. And then it's also really trying to like marry the character, because it's one thing if you're playing, maybe Su'Kal like Bill Irwin is doing in the last episode, or a Klingon in battle, where you can really use your full physical body to kind of tell a story. And maybe these, when you do a big facial expression, that will start to kind of peek through on the mask. But for so much of what I was doing, it was much smaller. It was much more contained. It was in these smaller rooms, and I had to find a kind of way of conveying a sense of subtlety, but also make sure that the story got told, and it didn't just feel like somebody who was stuck inside of the mask. So, it was definitely a challenge, and so I'm always really, really pleased to hear when that kind of came through for people.
Did you do any like research into like the lore or the mythology or culture of Andorians at all before this, or do you know much about it?
I watched all of Jeffrey Combs's episodes of Enterprise, which I'd seen before, but kind of did a rewatch. I watched, the TOS episode where there's the Telluride is posing as an Andorian. I read sort of like the secondary canon from the books and stuff that were out there. In terms of the lore, I think what's so amazing about Andorians is they're such like an iconic creature. Anybody who really sees these things will be like, oh yeah, that's Star Trek. But really, there is so little canon out there, especially if you compare them to something like a Vulcan or a Klingon, where there's books and languages of canon, but they're almost just as recognizable. And so when I think about lore, when I think about that kind of canon stuff, I think it really just comes down to Jeffrey Combs's performance of Shran, because you introduce stuff like the planet of Andor and the Imperial Army, or all this stuff, but that's not really a species canon. That's as much lore as you're going to get with another one-off species that you're going to meet and go down to the planet and meet their king or president or queen or whatever. So really, I think it came down to, in Enterprise, Jeffrey Combs's acting choices of this kind of bombastic, confident, passionate being. And I think those sort of affected all the other actors, or they sort of picked up on that, the other ones, playing Andorians as well. And my thought was also like, okay, well, if that is the idea of what an Andorian is, then how do I sort of fit this broken Andorian into the canon? And I just sort of approached it as, in the later episodes of Enterprise, you see him really at a rock bottom and have these deep emotional feelings of loss and confusion and sadness. And I just thought, well, what if I sort of try and pick up from there? And I can start at this low point and then slowly build back up to the confidence and bombast that is sort of starting to come out in the second episode that I'm in.
Jeffrey Combs is great, isn't he?
He really is. He's just like a crazy dynamic performer. He's one of those people who I love where it's like, this shouldn't work. This shouldn't be working right now, but I'm absolutely buying it. I don't know. He's just like, you can tell that he is fully in whatever he is doing. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, if you get in his way, he's going to push you out of the way, So it's fun to watch and it's really captivating.
Did you get a chance to talk to him at all?
I haven't yet. I keep trying to draw him out on Twitter and get the blessing from him, but I have a feeling he's very stingy with his Andorian blessings. So a convention before I can really, get the blessing from the king.
I'm sure you'll get there.
I hope so. I definitely hope so.
I don't know if I told you this, Khalid, before, but I once went to Star Trek trivia like a couple years ago. They have it like once every month or something around here in a bar in Minneapolis. But there was a question that was like, what species lives on this icy moon, blah, blah, blah. And my wife, Nicole, who's also a big Star Trek fan, she was like, it's the blue guys, the Andorians, right? Blue cold. And I'm like, no way, that's not that simple. And I was just like trying to think of the most obscure alien. I was like, we're going with this obscure thing. And of course, it was Andorians.
Oh, man, I bet she let you have it too.
Oh, yeah, she still talks about it.
You deserve it, to be honest.
Of course.
I do. I really do.
Blue cold. What's to get? Like, it's
Right?
so obvious.
I'm curious. One other question about like alien species stuff is there any other race in Star Trek that you would want to portray? Like for example, like Jeffrey Combs played like 9 different races over the course of his time. Like, is there any other that you'd want to ever try?
Well, I think, I've read an interview that he did, and I sort of feel the same way. It's so much fun to get to add to canon with something that is still relatively undiscovered, if you will. So one of the great joys of getting to do this was like, I actually didn't have a ton of canon which I needed to sort of incorporate, or that I had to ignore because of this character, and instead I really got to feel like I was building new things that somebody else down the line could pick up on, and sort of become integrated into the the story of Star Trek in a really fun way. And in that way, I feel like, it's like I would love to kind of keep picking up on these newer aliens that are out there. I think a lot about Kelpians and Saru, and there's just so much more to be explored. Even though we're meeting more Kelpians like in the moment right now, there's just so much more to be explored with them. So I think that would be so fun, especially, I'm so tall and lanky that I feel like I'm already like 90% Kelpian. So yeah, something like that, a newer alien that we don't know a lot about, I think is just so much fun, because it really feels like you are creating this, character Bible, which is just awesome.
That's so cool.
It really is.
So this is a creature feature podcast discussion for the most part. So I guess my next question for you is are there any like famous cinema or TV like creatures that like hold a special place for you, or that like you grew up loving?
Gosh, well, so much of it is like Star Trek creatures, but I do think like currently, basically my creature is just Doug Jones. I don't know if you guys have had like a 40-part episode on Doug yet, but I think you absolutely should. Everything he does from Pan's Labyrinth to Shape of Water, especially after having been in The Mask, I'm sort of just obsessed with everything he does, including Saru, which I know it's not like, one creature that is sort of stuck with me, but it just knowing him and then watching him do things, which, I found it so, so challenging, just deeply challenging to be in this mask and work and act and be stuck in it for the whole day. And I felt like I was pretty successful at it. And some other prosthetic actors who I knew were like, yeah, you're one of us. You're one of these insane people. And to feel really, like, wow, I did it. I'm feeling so good about myself. And then look over at Doug and see he's doing it in high heels with gloves on and no ears. And then to look back at him doing Shape of Water, where he's in a full bodysuit and can't go to the bathroom for 18 hours, or look back at the, him in Pans, where he has no eyes, he's blind, he can't see anything, and he's doing this amazing, physical work with his hands and everything. And then to even go all the way back to Hocus Pocus. I saw Hocus Pocus, and Doug is in that playing, that zombie guy. And I was talking to him about it. I'm like, Doug, like, how did they get that shot? There's a shot in the movie where they finally like cut open his mouth, which has been sewn together because he can't talk. So they cut open his mouth and these moths fly out. And it's this great, great shot because he's been dead for so long. He finally has his mouth back. And I said, Doug, like, how the hell did they do that moth shot? It looks so real. I just can't believe it. Like, what did you do? And he's like, oh, well, they put moths in my mouth.
Wow.
Are you absolutely serious right now? And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, because on top of, I just truly can't imagine that. On top of being in a prosthetic, on top of, doing this amazing physical, so much of what he does is so physical because so often he's not allowed to speak, Shape of Water, Pans, like in this, he wasn't allowed to speak as well. So he's doing this amazing sort of like campy zombie strut, which is so fun. And then on top of that, you sew his mouth shut so he can't breathe through his mouth that whole time. And then you put moths in it. It's just like, it's unreal. So my sort of obsession is sort of just like going back and looking at the stuff Doug has done and seeing how good it is, and then realizing it was like 10 times harder than anything I'll ever do in my entire life in any situation.
We gush about Doug Jones a lot on this podcast. We done one episode about, I think Hush was the only one that we've done that's specifically dedicated to him, but he always somehow we always circle back to like Doug Jones roles just because he's so prevalent in like creature features. And I feel like I'm almost like nervous to tackle more of Doug Jones like filmography. Because I'm like, they're so good. I don't want to I'm inexperienced now. I want to have like 50 episodes under my belt. But
it's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the dream about a challenge.
Noah gushing about it really makes me want to do a Doug Jones just appreciation episode or something. Like
we should.
We just like get like some of his like best roles and like to just gush about it.
Yeah, I think you'll need like a 10 episode mini series of it. It's so much. It's so much. And so often like the things he does are like, he was in that. That's Doug, it's just awesome.
Yeah. He just blends. He's a chameleon. Like, but he's so good. And like I just realized that he was in Tank Girl too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. We just got to do a Doug Jones marathon and just maybe record it or something.
It's a credit to how good he is that I genuinely just take it for granted that Saru isn't real. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, I understand that like it's a person in prosthetics, but he plays him so effortlessly, or at least it looks effortless, that you kind of just like you let the mystique wash over you, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's an alien talking to a person.
These prosthetics are so difficult, and they literally ratcheted up his difficulty level to, I don't think, until you're going into like full body suits or no eyes or something like, so those shoes he has, They don't have a heel, and he's walking in them constantly. I mean, anytime that you see his feet, like those are his feet in these insane shoes, including when he's like walking outdoors. Like the first two episodes in Iceland, I was there when they were shooting, and we're on these giant black rock sand beaches, and he's walking these in these high heels. It's not CGI'd at all. And then he also has these, on top of everything, these insane contacts, those sort of blue eyes that come to this tiny little pupil at the end. They're so thick that you can see not just the contact, but like the individual ridges of the kind of fake iris that is on his eye. And, the only part where he can see is that tiny little black dot in the center. So his vision is totally obscured. He can't see anything. He also doesn't have a nose as Saru. So, he can't breathe through his nose. He can't touch his nose. If his nose runs, it just falls into his face. He doesn't have any ears, so he can't hear anything. It's just out of this world what he's able to do.
Yeah, I remain impressed. Yeah.
It's crazy to think how far like Star Trek has come, like prosthetics wise, from like the original series. Thinking about it, like you're right, Khalid. Like you can almost think about like Saru looks like a real alien. Like that's definitely like could almost be excused in thinking that was real.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you go back and look at early next generation in high def, you can really see like, oh, this was for a different kind of television. This was for a different kind of image. And it is amazing. You can like see the glue glistening on Michael Dorn's head. And now you have to really work to even understand that who is in there and how they're doing that.
Yeah. The stuff they did on the first season with the Klingons was very intense. Like I was not expecting that.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, it's a little bit different topic, but what's it like working or acting opposite your wife?
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. We got to do a ton of stuff in that second episode, which was amazing. And I was pretty scared and intimidated. This was sort of her house. She knew everybody. She knew what was going on. And I was sort of the newbie. But yeah, man, we just had a ton of fun, and it just felt really natural and also just like very lucky to get a chance to do it together, because there was totally a world where, it's not a given that we would have any scenes together. So I just had so much fun and felt really lucky. And, we, in our first scene together, I sort of came in like red hot, ready to like really give it to her. And we're going to have this super, intense scene. And I did a take, and Jonathan Frakes pulled me aside and he was like, "No, you need to like chill out. Like you're way too intense. That's not what's going out. We're like trying to tell you that book is on the planet right now." I was like, "Oh my God, I've blown it. I'm going to get fired. This is it." And then Mary and I were walking back to our trailer after we were done shooting, and I was like, "How was the day?" And she's like, "Oh my God, it was so terrible. Jonathan pulled me aside and said I was way too intense trying to get in this fight with you." So we both sort of independently had come in absolutely red hot, ready to go after each other. And Jonathan independently told us we needed to like chill the fuck out.
That's awesome. The scenes with you two are really fun to watch. Just like knowing that you guys are married outside of it. It's you guys do a really great job together.
Thank you.
Yeah. We did an episode on the specific creature like a couple episodes ago, the tardigrade from season 1, and all of us got to go around and talk about like our favorite Discovery characters so far. And I said actually my favorite character so far has been Tilly, and the same with my wife. And it's just she's been such a fun like character to follow, and like the journey from the cadet to first officer has been really really cool to watch happen, especially like one of her intros being like, "I'm going to be captain." Like that's where we meet her, and like seeing her get there, it's really rewarding to watch. And I've really enjoyed her like character and the presence on the show a lot.
Yeah, I think she just adds so much to the show. I just, yeah, it's been a real pleasure to get to see her kind of work through all that as an actor. I think she's just done such a good job.
Yeah, and and Khalid and I were just talking about how much fun the Captain Killy was in the recent episodes too.
Yeah, that's just like
Yeah.
a fun thing that everybody kind of got to do, and she was so awesome, and I really liked what she brought to it. This kind of like she described it in an interview as like a mix between God, like Azula from Avatar and Harley Quinn, which I thought was just such a great, smart choice to kind of like balance out the sort of psychopath murderer that Sonequa brought to the table. I thought it was really fun.
Yes, that's a great description, actually. Very spot on. Those two are very good influences.
No Mirror Rin though. You don't get to be in the Mirror universe.
Uh, it doesn't seem, honestly, he's probably dead in the mirror universe with your show running Andor. I think he's long gone.
Well, the timelines just don't match up. I'm sure, like, in their deep future, you're hanging out doing some cool mirror stuff.
You're playing racquetball somewhere, just blissfully unaware.
Yes.
I wish that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
So non-Trek question. I've really enjoyed seeing on Twitter like Anthony Rapp talking about I think it was hashtag Disco does D&D, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so much fun. Could you tell us a little bit about your D&D game?
Yeah, I've been playing for a couple of years now. I'm still a relative newbie. I had wanted to start a game up at some point last year, but I booked a play and had to go back to New York and Baltimore, so I sort of shelved it. And then this year, being up here in Toronto with Mary while she's shooting, it just was like a great time to have a chance to like kind of have everybody hang out and do something other than talk about work because we can't hang out in person like so many other people right now. So it's just been a really fun way to uh, have everybody hang out who wanted to play. Also get to know Ian and Blue, who I didn't really know well at all before this, and now I'm like, totally enamored with both of them. And it's been really fun to like see this response, of people like being excited for this stupid home game, which is like, not, I mean, I love it and I think it's great, but it's just like a bunch of us idiots playing D&D and but we're having a really great time, and it's been also really fun for me to like watch the people from Critical Role get excited about Anthony and watch the people from Dimension 20, like all these actual play shows that I'm obsessed with. I'm just like deeply geeking out and fanning out and like taking screen caps when people like my tweets or whatever. So it's been really fun, and hopefully at some point we've been talking a lot about doing maybe like a charity live stream one shot or something like that, something that sort of maintains the integrity of our sort of little doofy home game, but allows people to kind of join in and kind of do it for like a good cause or something like that. So hopefully that will kind of matriculate down the line at some point.
Oh, that's so cool. How many of you guys are doing it?
Um, Right now, it's Mary, Anthony, Emily Coots, Blue, and Ian. It seems like maybe Ken's. I'm sorry, Anthony's fiance Ken might join us, which is exciting. It's always nice to have some new blood. Um, and we'll see. I have a feeling that as like more people, get excited about it on the internet, other people will want to kind of drop in and say hi as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started playing D&D about 2 years ago with a group of our friends too, and it's become just it's just a nice way to stay social. Like for a while, it was like a good way to meet up, and now it's a really nice way to like have Zoom like or online FaceTime meetings without just like kind of chatting about something. Like it's just a great way to like kind of stay together, and I feel like when the more we play, the more we get like really like geeky about it, like he's having fun and like digging into D&D mythology, like my character's backstory. And for the holiday, my wife Nicole, she made like elvish bread from like a Lord of the Rings recipe, and we brought like dragon's milk beer, and we went and like delivered it to all our people to like toast for the next game.
Amazing. Yeah, it's this weird thing where it's just like you keep falling down the rabbit hole and you're like, all right, well, I'll just buy one more thing. I'll just look at one more article. I'll just like download one more podcast. And then suddenly it's like, oh, this is my entire life. This is all I do. This is all of what all of my friends are doing. How did I end up here?
Yeah, it's easy to get similar to Star Trek, right? You get dragged further down that rabbit hole, and there's just so much content to look at.
Exactly.
Yeah. Trek and D&D aside, is there anything else that you've got sort of on the horizon?
For the moment, that's about it. That's kind of where, in this sort of pandemic world, I have put all my current energy and thought. There is. I did a little fundraiser for this charity called Type 1 International, which does advocacy and legislation and support for type 1 or just insulin availability and affordability for type 1 diabetics and all diabetics who are relying on insulin. And that went really, really well. I was very, very honored by the sort of support from the Trek community. And, I'm hoping to continue with that. I think maybe, doing some sort of auction or event or something like that. I hope to kind of keep that thing going. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely send us some. If you see it, we'll share it in the show notes or something. I saw your fundraiser a couple weeks ago. Is that one still going?
It's sort of a rolling fundraiser. I'm not sort of like pushing it forward anymore. Of course, if you want to give money, you absolutely can. I'm hoping to maybe, try something like I've been in contact with people about sort of maybe making some like custom comm badges or something Star Trek-y or selling autographs or something like that. It's still sort of in the development phases, especially over the holidays, but hopefully it'll all come together.
Oh, cool! Yeah. We'll do our best to signal boost on our limited fan base here at Frankenstein's podcast. Khalid, did you have any other questions you wanted to before we kind of move to the ending? I want to respect our time here.
Yeah, no, I think we're all good.
Cool. We kind of usually end our show with like a segment we call "What the Fandom," where we just kind of talk about like what we're really into at the moment, or like what we're watching, what we're reading about. So if there's anything that maybe you're into at the moment that you wanted to share or plug, or you think people would want to listen to, or
gosh,
go ahead.
Let me think for a second. Well, yeah, I mean, most of what I do all day is think about Star Trek and D&D. So, yeah, watch the next episode of Star Trek Discovery on Thursday. Definitely do that. All I really do is Star Trek and D&D. So, like, if you haven't checked out Critical Role yet, do yourself a favor and dive into that whole world and sink maybe 300 or 400 hours of your life into it. And I don't think you'll regret it. And then, there's just like a ton of other actual play, live play stuff. NADPOD, Adventure Zone, Dimension 20, just really good places during a pandemic when everything sucks and nothing is good, as a place to just really escape for a little bit. So do yourself a favor and leave your body behind and just disappear into a fantasy world for a little bit.
It's definitely rewarding right now, isn't it?
Yeah, now is really a good time to just I got Anthony into it, and he was really resistant to Critical Role for a while. It's too long. There's so many episodes. I don't know where to start. And like fast forward like 2 weeks, he's like 50 episodes in, like 200 hours of watching. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Awesome. Are you watching any other Star Trek series other than Discovery right now?
I haven't recently. Every once in a while I'll sort of like dip back into Enterprise and stuff like that. I'll probably, do some rewatching of DS9. That's probably one of my like weak spots in terms of like knowing everything. So I'll probably do a little bit of Enterprise and of DS9 in the coming days.
Cool. Is Enterprise your favorite
You know,
outside of Discovery?
yeah, outside of Discovery, exactly. Enterprise is the one that like holds sort of like the soft spot in my heart since it's the one I grew up on. I also think it is the most Star Trek in a weird way. Like it can't hide its campiness. It can't hide like its silliness and it can't hide its bad episodes. And I feel like so often when people like look back on Star Trek, they ignore the things that like are a little too silly or don't make any sense or that totally sucked. And I feel like with Enterprise, you really just have to like take the whole thing as it is. And that's sort of how I feel like all Star Trek should be encountered, especially like new Star Trek, you know. It just sort of like it is what it is, and you sort of wind up loving it for that. And I feel like with Enterprise, you just I don't know, it's your friend who's like constantly getting into trouble or constantly like saying the wrong thing, but you just can't help but just love them.
It's a great way to describe Enterprise. I love it. Yeah. I'm currently we just finished season 2 of Enterprise and we're in season 5 of Voyager. We're kind of doing like a big
Amazing.
rewatch of all the shows. So it's been fun to watch Enterprise. I feel like it tried to be really edgy at first and it's fun to see it kind of settle into its Star Trek-y groove.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it you know, it takes a while to like find what it is, you know? But there are some really amazing episodes in there, some ones that have stuck with me just as much as any other series.
Oh, absolutely. Khalid, do you have any what the fandoms to share this week?
Thank you for asking, Joe. I do.
You're welcome.
Yeah. My what the fandom this week is gonna go to the new Disney Plus movie Soul. It just dropped on Christmas, and yeah, it's a delightful movie. It's surprisingly more adult oriented than I thought it was gonna be. Just conceptually, it's still a Disney and Pixar movie, so you kids can watch it. But it's the kind of thing that really adults are going to walk away thinking a lot more about it than children, and it's just delightful. I don't really see a lot of like black lives really envisioned in animation, especially in like major animation like Disney often. So it's really cool. They have scenes here where like they do like really in-depth stuff at a barber shop that's like very intimate if you grew up with that as your background. So yeah, I mean, it's what most of the internet's already saying. It's just a great watch and cool ideas to just chew on.
Awesome, Khalid. Great recommendation. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I think that's. Oh, I suppose I gotta do my what the fandom, don't I? Shoot.
It'd be nice, yeah.
Okay. My quick ones. We recently started watching Truth Seekers on Amazon Prime, the one with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I don't know if you liked it as much, Khalid, but I'm kind of really into it. I like the sort of like earnest like horror to it. Like it's horror-y, it's funny, but it kind of gives me a Doctor Who vibe in that way, where it's like it takes its silliness very seriously and treats it carefully. So I'm only 2 episodes in, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I think I'd recommend that to anyone listening if you like ghost stuff and kind of goofy sci-fi stuff. One more, just because this is all Star Trek-y. I'm going to also say I'm reading a Star Trek novel right now, a Discovery novel. So I don't know if you've read any Discovery novels, but
Which one?
Die Standing, the one about Giorgio in Section 31 between seasons 1 and 2.
Amazing. I haven't seen that one. I'm most familiar, of course, with Tilly's book, but I've heard really good things about those books, and they really like worked hard to sort of tie them into canon in a really kind of awesome way.
Yeah, it's really fun. I've gotten a lot more into Star Trek books lately. Like when during the off season, when I was like, oh, now like there's no new Star Trek on. I got to read some Star Trek books, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a whole bunch that's probably may not be as good, but there's a lot of good stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got to be weird. Has Mary read that book about Tilly? Like, is it weird to read like about your character that you play?
She didn't read it mainly because it just seems like a lot of work. I think it's like it's canon if they want it to be, but not canon if they don't want it to be. And I think it's like somebody else's interpretation of what you are actually in control of is also like a little awkward to sort of encounter. But I think, my mom read it, her mom read it. So it was well received in the family. It was very exciting that they decided to do one about her. That's like kind of an honor to get that sort of treatment. So it was still super, super cool.
Right. And even if you don't read it, it's a cool thing to like have on the shelf. Be like, look, I'm on a book.
Right away.
That's so awesome. Well, we came up right about an hour. We did good on time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Noah. We really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show with us. It's an honor to have you, to be completely honest.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I had a great time talking with you guys today. Thanks for letting me blab on.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you ever think of, I know you said you're not a huge monster person, but if there's any monster movie that you ever watch and you're just like, oh man, I'd love to chat more about that, you know where to go, and we'll give you a whole episode to talk monsters.
All right, that's a deal. You have yourself a deal.
Yeah. Anything you want to plug? Any social media or something you want people to find you?
Follow me on Twitter N_A_K, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, guys, thank you for listening to this special episode of Frankenstein's podcast. Until next time, creep it easy.